Hello everyone. In this narrated PowerPoint, we are going to talk about the process of negotiating financial aid offers at schools to which you have been accepted. So this is a process that many students engage in. Most students tend to feel a little bit awkward about it, which is pretty common, pretty typical. I think talking about money always leaves people feeling a little bit out of sorts and maybe a little bit disjointed. So what we would like to do is to kind of talk you through the process, what to do, what not to do, and to really just reinforce that this is a perfectly reasonable, understandable, and in some cases expected process of applying to medical school and deciding where you would most like to attend. So to get started, first what you need to have in your possession is more than one acceptance. It's very difficult to negotiate when you only have one offer, and the medical schools, will certainly be expecting to see the financial aid award letter that you have received from another school in order to engage in this negotiation. So unfortunately, unless you have more than one acceptance, you don't really have kind of any leverage to work with. So you need to have more than one acceptance. You need to have the official financial aid award letter from 2 or more schools. And hopefully it makes logical sense that your top choice school would be the more expensive option. That's the school that you're trying to negotiate or leverage for. So what is perhaps often the case is someone will be accepted to 2 places. Their financial aid award from their second choice school is better, is leaving them with less debt than the award from their top choice school, and then that's the point from which you would negotiate. It's also important that you have calculated your 4-year cost of attendance at those top 2 or possibly 3 schools. You definitely don't want to approach a medical school with 5 or 6 financial aid awards in hand. They really want to know and to understand that they are your top choice, but because you have this offer from another school, you're sort of hesitating in making that final commitment. So you only want to do this with 2 or 3 possible schools to use as examples. And it's important that you've calculated your full 4-year cost of attendance. That's for 2 reasons. One, for your own benefit. Do you know that the scholarship or aid that you have been given does carry through all 4 years? And also it's important to know whether the school that you're kind of thinking about changes the tuition level in years 3 or 4. At some schools, those later years, because they are your clinical years and you might need to carry additional, for example, malpractice insurance, things along those lines, your cost of attendance in your later years may actually be more than it is in your early years. So you just want to make sure you have that full 4-year picture so that you're negotiating accurately. So how do you approach this? Ideally, you want to do this either in person or over email. In person often happens during, for example, second look weekends or revisit weekends where you may be back on campus at that particular school. Or you can also use email as another approach, because in both cases, it's easy to either have in front of you or have as an attachment those financial aid award letters that you're going to be working between. Technically, you could call to start the conversation, but I think many admissions officers can feel a little bit caught off guard. And so I think either going in person or having a conversation over email, or at least starting the conversation over email, lets the admissions director kind of take a minute to review what you have in front of what they have in front of them, what you've submitted to them, before needing to give you advice. It's also perhaps important to note that at some schools, the admissions office is the place to go for this. At other schools, it may be the financial aid office. I typically start with admissions because that's who you have the relationship with, and you could certainly ask or to say, I'm not sure if I should be working on this with you or if I should go to financial aid. If there's a better person for me to talk to, please let me know that. So either way, sort of the facts that you wish to convey is your school is my number one choice, and this is absolutely where I would like to attend if money were not an issue. However, finances are incredibly important, and it's something that I'm considering greatly when I make my final decision for medical school. When looking at your school versus my next choice, my number two or my number three choice, the overall difference in my debt level across those 4 years would be X amount of dollars. So maybe it's $30,000, maybe it's as much as 100 or more $1,000, but you want to definitely specify what the exact amount is. And then what you would want to say is, are there any additional or other resources available that I might be considered for? This is a more, I guess, humble and kind of less in your face way to kind of ask, is there any more money that you have for me? Is there any more money that can be found? You may want to be prepared for what's called kind of a magic number. So if they say to you, well, how much additional money would really make a difference for you? And what that number is can be sort of a personal decision. I mean, ideally, obviously, that the school is able to match the offer that your second choice school has presented. You may want to say, you know, even if we could split the difference, if the number could get a little bit closer, that would really help. So you need to kind of decide what that magic number is, just in case they're asked for anything, you know, they ask you for something specific. So a few additional points to remember as you go through this process. You never want to threaten or sort of throw down the gauntlet. You never want to say, if you are unable to increase my award, I will not be able to attend your school. You may very well still wish to attend that school. You're just looking for a little bit of additional money. So this isn't a situation where you want to really, you know, kind of go for a power position, really kind of throw down your gauntlet, make your final statement. Unfortunately, as with much of the experience that you've had already with medical school admissions, they still have the majority of the power and the majority of the control, so you don't want to kind of come at this from a threatening approach. Remember too that please and thank you go a very long way. It's great to say, could you please consider any additional sources of funding? Thank you so much for anything that you're able to provide, or thank you so much for your willingness to engage in this conversation. Please and thank you, just as always, go a really long way in encouraging a person to help you and to potentially look for additional information or finances for you. Definitely don't play schools off of each other. You know, if you're making a school your number one choice, you're approaching them for this money, for this offer, you don't want to then go to your number two choice and say, well, hey, these guys did a little bit more, what could you do? And then your number two school might increase a little bit more because you're telling them they're your number one choice. It's just, the medical school admissions world is incredibly small. They don't like to feel that they're played off of one another. Many times they know each other across different medical schools. So if you kind of make a little bit of, again, that sort of power play, and you're kind of adjusting schools off of each other, chances are they're going to find out about it, and chances are they're not going to be happy about that. So you really want to operate in good faith, and in being able to say, you know, you really are my number one choice, and I'd really like to attend your school. I just need a little bit more assistance in moving forward with that. With that being said, don't forget that there may be nothing more that they can do. There are some schools that have more flexibility with money. There are some schools that have a bigger pot of money. Other schools literally may have no additional resources, no additional options, or they might say, you know what, at this point, all of our scholarship has been allotted. We won't know whether or not we can provide any additional funding until we have a better sense of who's coming here. So maybe they need to wait for a couple of people to reject their offer before that money comes back into the scholarship pool. So be prepared to hear that there may be nothing else that they can do. If you do hear that message, you know, it's great to just sort of say, well, thank you so much for engaging in this conversation with me. I really appreciate it. I will, you know, be continuing to discuss my financial options and my school choices with my family, or, you know, whoever you might be kind of leaning on to help you in making this decision, and sort of graciously either end the in-person or the phone appointment. Also, don't be surprised if you are in person if they do ask you to see the financial aid award letter from that other school. It's unfortunately not unheard of that a student makes or tries to make a power play without actually having an award letter from another school, or in having an award letter, but that shows that their second choice is more expensive than their first choice. So don't be surprised if that happens as well. In either case, either if they say there's nothing more they can do, or if they say, I need to see that additional award letter, obviously respond graciously, give them any follow-up information that they need as quickly as possible, and then continue the conversation from there. So again, we know that this can feel a little bit awkward. We know that many people hesitate to have this sort of conversation, but from our experience, most medical schools definitely want to know if money is of concern, so they can hopefully help you with that in any way possible. And again, provided that you do this in a very polite and informed sort of way, the medical schools will be happy to engage in this conversation. And it won't be, sometimes students worry, will they hold it against me if I ask? What if I ask and then I show up there all the same? Are they going to kind of be looking at me sideways? Not at all. Most of the medical schools are fully used to this sort of thing. Maybe at some state schools where they don't have scholarship anyway, where they just have a standard cost of attendance and a standard relatively low tuition, they might not be as used to this sort of conversation, but certainly the schools that have pretty high price tags attached to them are expecting in some ways to have this conversation. So definitely feel free to be in touch with the schools to sort of state your case to the best of your ability, and let us know if there's anything we can do to help. Good luck.